flash, he'll save every one of us, do 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 do. I may not have done Queen justice there, but today we're going to talk about flashbulb memories, and I just thought it was appropriate to sing you a little song. So, come with me and let's get weird. You may have heard of flashbulb memories. Most people, like your parents and your grandparents and possibly you watching, know of flashbulb memories because of two significant events in the past century. The first one being the assassination of JFK. The second being 9/11. For me, personally, 9/11 is a flashbulb memory. What is a flashbulb memory? It is a highly detailed, emotionally vivid memory that you believe you retain the same amount of detail over time. So they call it a flashbulb because when you use a flash in photography, no matter what the shadows are or movement happening, it captures that exact moment. Events associated with flashbulb memories are unfortunately usually traumatic. There are some flashbulb memories that are not, like winning the Olympics. That's exciting. And some people have actually recorded Olympic events as flashbulb memories. So, a flashbulb memory is a very interesting thing because it also contains what are called inconsequential memories, like what you wore that day, what you ate for breakfast, how you wore your hair. Really strange details that normally over time are just omitted from your memories. Like if you sit here right now and you were alive during 9/11, you remember everything. But when you try to think back to your 8th birthday, which was a significant day, but not one that's considered a flashbulb memory, you try to remember things and you're like, oof, I don't know. I'm pretty sure I was wearing a dress. I know it was My Little Pony themed, Gen 1. And there was a piñata. I had a bunch of friends over. There was cake. Ooh, I do remember the goodie bags that I had. They were really cool. And they had Firefly, the original Firefly from My Little Pony on it. She's a Pegasus pony. Badass. She's kind of the template for Rainbow Dash. Like the real Rainbow Dash in Gen 6. Not, I'm always up for, or always in fashion. Rainbow Dash of Gen 3, and 4. And wait, did I say Gen 6? Gen 4 is the current gen. What is wrong with me? Oh, wait. It's my memory. Because memory for humans is essentially a very, very fallible thing. So how is it that flashbulb memories are considered more reliable than regular memories? Well, a lot of them are really sad memories, but not all of them. There is actually no rule about that. It's just that the general consensus is very traumatic events are more likely to be recorded as a flashbulb memory. And why they appear to be more reliable, they actually aren't. But what does help them stand what is the test of time is repeatability. Most flashbulb memories, the person has told the story over and over and over and over again. And with anything, repeating helps you remember what's going on. So it moves from one kind of memory to a different kind of memory. Now, I'm going to say trigger warning here because what I'm about to recount are my memories of 9/11. Trigger warning, okay? And I'm going to count to 5. And if you can't handle hearing 9/11 memories. And a lot of people can't, and that is okay. We'll put up a marker for you to fast forward to when I'm done talking about 9/11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The morning of 9/11, I remember rolling over in bed to my husband and saying to him, "Tell me I don't have to go to work today." And our alarm was going off, but for some reason it was on radio, and normally it wasn't on the radio. And I remember the news guy saying something vaguely about a plane hitting a building in New York. And being from New York, I oddly said to myself, again? And then Kane says to me, "You don't have to go to work today." And we get up, and Kane went out to the living room. And we had gotten a call in the middle of the night. And it was from one of our friends. And we both remember vaguely waking up and hearing the phone, but not waking up enough to actually go get the phone, even though it rang multiple times over and over again. And so we both wind up in the living room. And I'm still in my pajamas. And I go to turn on the TV like I did every morning to put the news on, and he's on the phone talking to our friend who had called. And I remember them talking, and then I went into shock because I was literally watching the second plane hit the second World Trade Center building. And I have family who worked there, and I went into shock, and I just turned around and started screaming at him, "Get off the phone, get off the phone, get off the phone. I have to call my family." And he said goodbye to our friend and hung up. No explanation. I'm sure that he could have heard me. I was screaming at the top of my lungs. And I spent the next 10 or 15 minutes calling over and over again, and all the lines were engaged, and that's the first time in my life I've ever heard anything like that. "I'm sorry, this call cannot be connected. All the lines are engaged." And I was just like, what the hell does that mean? Phones work. Phones are supposed to work. This is modern day. I am in the future. And yeah, freaking out. And then I had to call work because I was supposed to be at work then, because I was still trying to figure out where my family was. And I had to call work and tell my boss, I'm like, "I'm going to sound crazy, but I can't come into work right now because I can't find my family. And I need to find out if they're alive. And planes have just hit the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, and I can't come into work right now." And they said, "We know, it's okay. Do what you have to do. If you can come in later, that's great, but take as much time as you need." And I was like, "Thank you. I feel like a crazy person right now." And then I spent some more time trying to get through to my family. And then I hopped on AOL. Oh my goodness. AOL. And that magically worked. And after a little bit, there was an email from my parents saying that my family that worked in the building were okay. And it took me a while to calm down. But when I did, it was like everything was quiet. There were no planes. And we were on a flight path in Bozeman, Montana. And there were no planes. And that was very strange. And there were practically no cars. And it was the middle of the day. Everybody was quiet. It wasn't just me. The volume had been turned down on the world. And I couldn't bring myself to listen to the news. And then I found out that the rest of my family that lives in New York was okay too. And it's very emotional. And to this day, I still I have to take a minute because I start crying. And we were very lucky. And I honestly don't know why, but we were very, very lucky that we didn't lose anybody in our direct family, but they lost so many friends and so many people. And I'm going to take a moment to collect myself before I continue with the video. Things that I wouldn't normally really remember are like that I got up every morning and would turn the news on. That is just not something that I even think about, and it's something that I do. When I went to work that day, everything was so weird, and I remember like just wearing mismatched clothes, and I was just a mess like all day. And other small inconsequential memories are the conversation that I had with Kane in the morning. I remember it clearly, and those words ring in my ears. Tell me I don't have to go to work today. You don't have to go to work today. And those are inconsequential memories that over time would normally fade, but I've repeated the story many, many, many times since then. 9/11 is it's a thing, and only recently have I been able to watch TV or listen to the news around that time. And we were lucky. Alright. Trigger warning. Over. Alright. Back to telling you about flashbulb memories. Now that I'm a mess, you can see my eyes are puffy and my nose is red because I was talking about something traumatic and a flashbulb memory that I personally have. Breathe in the good air, out the bad air. So memory, and especially flashbulb memories, involves a part of the brain that's called the amygdala. Amygdala. And the amygdala is responsible for what's called episodic memory. And episodic memory is stuff like, oh yeah, I remembered we did this thing last week. We went to a movie. We did, something exciting. We went to a convention. That's all episodic memory. Now, while these memories are considered more reliable, research has been extensively done since 9/11. And this is one of the things that came out of that event that's actually really good. They've done extensive research from day one of 9/11 on flashbulb memories. And it turns out that they're not actually more reliable than your regular everyday memory. They do fade over time, and certain details do fade over time. I can't tell you what I was wearing that day specifically. I know I was a mess. But if you had asked me 5 years ago, I may have been able to tell you what I was wearing that day specifically because I'd repeated it so many times. But over time, I've just kind of left that out, and eventually that part of the memory has faded. So there is something in the science of memory that's called the special mechanism theory about flashbulb memories. And they haven't figured out what it is about these memories that makes them so vivid besides the repeat and the rehearsing of the memory as time goes on. The special mechanism hypothesis says that there's something about these memories that our brain records them in a slightly different way, but they don't know what it is yet. And they think that it's so that you can go back later on and unpack what you saw and experienced and felt. And it gives you a coping mechanism to deal with the events that can be very traumatic, like earlier when I was recounting my event and I had to go take a moment because the emotions are still very real and deep in my heart. And the reason that these things don't occur with everyday memories, like walking to work, going to the bus stop, working all day long at your computer, is because they're considered emotionally neutral. If you were sitting at your desk at work and something happened, like the building caught fire and you had to escape, that would probably trigger a flashbulb memory as you tried to process it later. You would repeat it. over and over again. You would tell people, your loved ones and possibly arson investigators, what happened over and over again, and it would become part of a flashbulb memory of that day. But if it had been a normal day and you just sat at your keyboard all day, you wouldn't necessarily remember that because it's emotionally neutral. And that, my friend, is a flashbulb memory. And what's weird, we don't know why they're there. We don't really know why they're there. We have ideas behind it. And the research that is being gathered from survivors and witnesses to various traumatic events over the years are actually helping us understand the workings of our own brain. And our brains are very strange. Why this is... Oh, I did that thing I hate when YouTubers do. I fixed my hair, but at least I didn't touch my nose. I freaking hate that. Hate that. If you're a YouTuber and I watch you, stop rubbing your nose. Crying out loud. Ooh. Ooh. You've triggered a flashbulb memory.